All right, and welcome back to Dash of Reading. How is everybody?
Good.
Good. Warm.
Am I lagging? Am I lagging behind?
No.
I think I figured it out. Well, let's hope I figured it out. All right, we're going to be talking about The Ogress and the Orphans by Kelly Barnhill, a fairy tale of sorts, I guess you would call it. We'll be talking. We'll be talking about this book.
Will we be talking or will we be yelling and speaking at a high volume and intense?
We'll be
picturing
talking.
Intensity and ranting.
There might be some intensity. I don't know. There might be a little bit of intensity about this book. But it has been praised by some and criticized by quite a few others. There are talks of the prose being very good and strong themes of kindness and community. So we'll get to talking about that. But before we get talking, how are you today, Miss Dana?
I'm doing just fine. It's warm. I have on sandals. I tried to wear a sweater early this morning when I went to feed the neighbor's dog and took it off really quickly. So I don't know if this will last, but for now, I'm not cold.
That is good to hear.
Yes.
Miss Amber.
I'm doing good. It's hot here too.
No complaints.
So mid 80s, which is hot. Eric did his yearly take everything off the back patio and pressure wash the pollen away. So now it's fresh and clean out there.
So is your pollen done?
I don't think so. Probably no, not quite.
Yeah, because ours is like just getting started. That's
ours has been going on, but my allergies are getting better, and most of my trees have bloomed, already a little bit. So, like the oak tree is the worst offender for me, and it's pretty much already flowering or whatever.
Oh wow!
But the patio, like once Thanksgiving passes, it just we're not hanging out in the backyard anymore, and it starts to look like crap. And this time of year, Eric's like, I must clean all the things.
we had a cold front come in last night, so it's a little it was a little chilly.
How was your weather? Because the national news said that was just going to be like a ton of tornadoes rolling through Oklahoma.
That cold front took care of it, thank goodness. It just ended up being, we had severe weather. We had lots of hail and lots of lightning and thunder and high winds, but that cold front kind of, I think, wiped out the majority of it because they were ramping up, and we had to get the tornado shelter and everything cleaned up. So, but overall, it was just mostly hail and and as David Payne likes to say, get your granny out of the casino if the tornadoes are
coming. David Payne, he's an Oklahoma meteorologist staple, Dana.
Yes. He's all. Nothing will ever top Gary England, but he comes in a close second. And I really wish Twisters would have had the movie Twisters. I really wish they would have had him instead of Emily Sutton and Mike Morgan, because
I haven't seen the new ones.
Oh, it's not bad. It was really good. It was if you're a fan of the first, you'll probably be a fan of the second. They do some different things in there, but they have some of the mentions of the the original Twister in there, so it was pretty good. I thought it was really good. So other than that, we're gonna bring up we'll get Miss Amber in here, but first we got to do this.
So normally before I give a little recap, I kind of think about it, and I think of 2 or 3 sentences worthy of Twitter just to kind of give you guys a brief overview, but I don't know this book, y'all. Okay, so pretty much the town is just in disrepair. Everything's crappy. It's like dystopian fantasy land, right? And there's an orphanage, and who are very poor because the town no longer gives them money. And then an ogress that settled outside of town and minds her own business and plants a garden. And the mayor is kind of a craptastic person, and the children can speak to crows. I don't know, you guys. I think the whole thing is supposed to be about what it takes to be a good neighbor and how to be kind in your community. But we're going to get into why this didn't work, why that doesn't work at all in this novel, or how she failed utterly, I think, in doing this. So pretty much you have an ogress that everybody doesn't like because she's strange and she lives out there. And then you have these orphans who are poor because the town doesn't take care of them. You have a mayor who makes signs. Am I missing something, friends?
The ogress does good things.
The ogress is wonderful. She's a fantastic person. The orphans are good, and the people who run the orphanage have a really good heart. Some of the townspeople are crotchety. You're going to hear us talk about a lot of mob mentality.
I will say the only thing missing from this novel was the Ogre 13 gang that's really nonviolent and only peacefully protest. That's the only thing missing from this novel.
There was no peaceful protest.
The Ogre 13 gang.
So I think right away I would just in part of my recap would just like to say, just because I don't want to sit here and rehash the events of 2020 and 2021. I don't want to do it. We have to talk about it to talk about this book, because Kelly Barnhill, specifically in her author's notes, talks about how she disliked the president at the time, which is now the current president, and how angry she was. And so she takes her anger at what was going on with the pandemic and just the president's attitude towards other people, and she put this in a novel for children, and didn't even try to settle it down or water it down or anything. And so just so you guys know, that is the core of this. It is very obvious as to what she's doing. There is no pretending as to what she's doing. I just don't want to sit here and go over, well, I believed this or I believed that, because that's not, we can talk about, she can have her own ideas. She can believe whatever she wants to believe, have her own feelings. But I think I'm just speaking for all three of us. I think we're going to get into how she kind of really missed an opportunity with this novel and just made it into something not good.
Yeah, definitely one of the biggest criticisms that came from other readers was the over the top moralizing of this novel, and I think you just kind of nailed it there with you summed it up very nicely with what she put in her notes. Listen, if I had to sum this book up in one word, it would be hyperbolic. In a lot of factors, and again, you make mention of it being how she felt during it. Do you, Amber, think that? Well, you just you just said it could have been. You felt that it was a little overboard. What could she have done different in this to tone it down a little bit?
Not have been so obvious as it being the events of 2020. At the end, in chapter 3, was it? No. In chapter 2, she talks about a dragon and how not all dragons are bad, but this dragon is a terrible, terrible dragon. He was greedy, just really not a good person. And she uses a lot of big words. And if I would have liked this book, I think this would have been a really good book for middle schoolers and have vocabulary words pulled out of here. Because sometimes I was like, what does that mean? But so she uses a lot of big words, and she goes, these are all large words, and I apologize for them, but my feelings about this dragon are large. And my spidey senses just went off, and I was... Eric's telling me that Denny Hamlin just won NASCAR. Yay! Okay. Anyway.
And that concludes today's show. I'm going to cry in the corner. And,
Eric, pay attention. Eric heard this every time I'm reading, I would stomp over. I'm like, listen to this. Anyway, when she said, but my feelings about this dragon are large, I literally could feel her anger. I'm like, this is this is current events. Like she's specifically talking about something. I immediately went to the author notes and went, oh, where she specifically says it's because of 2020, 2021 and the president at that time. I think she should have been subtle, because I think the book, and we'll get into it, has good things about what it means to be a neighbor and how to be kind to people in your community. But I don't know if 10, 12, 13-year-olds need to have those current events shoved in their face like that, when a lot of them, in my experience, probably are watching CNN or Fox News with their parents. I'm going to try not to get fired today, Dash.
No, you're not going to get fired. You're not going to get fired.
I just think it was too obvious.
And again, I looked up a lot of the criticisms today because, of course, when I give a 1-star book, I want to make sure I have my feelings, I guess, in it backed up by other people. I'm not just being mean or anything. Right. And one of the biggest criticism it was her anger overshadowed what the real moral of the story was, and that was to be kind. Because one of the things I read was she's preaching everybody to be. Well, I don't want to use the word preach, but that's the word that they use. She's writing for everybody to be kind, but yet the entire book is all about her anger. So I think that was one of my biggest concerns with this book, and why I probably won't even request or let my daughters read it ever. Dana, what do you think? Do you think her anger overshadowed the actual moral of the story?
I did. And the thing that annoyed me the most is that it was a book for kids. If she wants to write a book for adults, and she can rant any way she wants about anything she wants to adults, but to hand this to like a 10 or 11-year-old and expect that they can have discernment enough to sort through, they're not going to be able to do that. And at the end, I felt like it was going to be a confusing message, and then they might not really even understand what they just read.
Yes, exactly.
So, and that made me angry. I was like, you don't, if you want to market something like this, do it, but don't push it towards children.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I agree. I think I have a lot of things wrong with this book. Again, I do think the words were fine, and it would have been, but I think she tried to make herself, as you pointed out, Amber, that the big words would be great for vocabulary. But I think she tried to present herself as the superior being over everybody else with these big words. And that's something I hate to bring school into it, but that was something even our instructor said, don't try to be smarter than your audience.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that she's, again, this is my feelings. Kelly is well allowed to feel however she wants to feel. I have no problem with that. I spent 23 years in the military, fighting for that freedom for her to do that. What I have a problem with is you're trying to portray a story, as we've all mentioned to talk about, giving a lesson, and it took 20 chapters, I felt like, or almost 200 pages for that moral to come out, because the first 200 pages was nothing but anger and frustration on her part. Had she that pacing was slow. And even getting to that point, it was so slow. I think this could have been a better book. Again, my opinion, and it doesn't reflect anybody else but my opinion. Maybe you guys agree with me, but I'm just saying at this point, this is my opinion, that had she, this is a fast read, but the pacing is slow. If you know what I mean, like you can get through it, but it just takes a long time to get to the point. I think had she started off with the moral being the moral compass being at the beginning and not at page 333 or something, I'm just guessing, then this book might have been a little bit better. And I think it would have, she could have been angry, and that would have wiped away the anger a little bit more. What do you think on that, Amber?
I think she kept. You're right. Like the pacing, I think is terrible because she kept pausing and going back too much or something, and there was not. I didn't feel like there was like a good flow to this story, and it did take a while to get to what she was trying to say. Like I said, that whole part where she says, "What is a neighbor?" I liked that whole little section. It talks about being kind. I also liked when they start, because one thing, and she was right about this, is the first thing in the town to go was the library. Mm-hmm. And we know what that is in, banned books. And when you take away books, and especially a library where people can get free books, you cause their worldview to become smaller, because even a fiction book will let you peek into the world of people groups you would never encounter otherwise, right? So the library goes away. So the orphans figure out that they need to put books back. There needs to be books back. And for the life of me, I can't remember how that all got started. But anyway, she said the Athena, or the girl, was looking around and that people were becoming nicer, kinder when they were reading. And so I liked that. That was a good point. And just the being kind was a good point. I just think she was probably really, really, pissed off while she was writing this. And I think maybe she just kept making herself angrier and angrier. Yeah. So her pacing was really way off, and she just kept backtracking a little bit. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm saying anything coherently. So maybe Dana can.
No, the pacing was definitely bad, because I kept thinking I'd be reading this late at night and honestly falling asleep. I was bored. Yes. And I'd be like, okay, this is a 3-page chapter. I ought to be able to get through a bunch of these. And I would be like, oh gosh, I've got to read another one. Like, I had set a goal to read so many pages in a night, and I just was finding myself not wanting to read the book. But there were sections of it that I really loved. I really loved the sections where we were with the Ogress, and she was talking to her animals, and she was building her barn and planting her garden. Like, I thought that was fun to read that part.
Yes.
But those were the parts when she wasn't moralizing so much. She was she was doing a little bit more world building in those sections with this Ogress living on the outside of town. So I really enjoyed those. So I think there's good things in the book, but I think it probably needs to be half as long as it is. And if we got rid of all of her ranting, it would be half as long, and it would be a nice story. Keep the library bits, keep the keep the kindness of the Ogress, keep the the children, we see the children growing up and dealing with some things, and those bits were interesting as well. That was the town stuff. I was like,
well, see, that's one of my this is probably my main criticism is the Ogress is very well written as far as character development. Yeah. I didn't get that with the townspeople. I didn't get that even with the orphans. You got a little bit of the orphans, but you didn't really know who the orphans were.
I don't believe the orphans. I don't believe anything about their characters. They're unbelievable caricatures for me. Especially, is it Athena, the oldest?
No,
Anthea. She said things like, and I wrote it down, it isn't logical to allow falsehoods to spread. Or, what is the use of truth when people refuse to believe verifiable facts? At this point, I went, are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, she's 14 or something?
Not even 14, because remember, 14, she's going to get kicked out. But I was like, what is happening? Listen, there are middle school, high schoolers who enjoy politics, who probably sat on the couch with their parents, had a great time. I'm not saying that kids don't do that. I don't think kids speak like this. And if they do, it's their parents that are putting those ideas in their heads. So then I have another problem with Kelly is you're talking about things that a child during 2020 probably should not have been aware of. And she's just one of those people that is like, no, her side was the right side and everybody else was wrong. And you can see that in the treatment of the mayor and the townspeople who were not very nice.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff that she's saying was falsehoods have been proven to be true. And
yes, and I didn't want. That's why I was like, I don't want to hash all that out, but yes,
no.
Yes.
Yeah, but I get it. But that's what I'm getting at with the kids, and I think you summed it up nicely. Is they were unbelievable. Yes, they and again they weren't fleshed out. That Anitha or whatever. Again, I can't.
Anthea.
Anthea. I spent little time worrying about them, anyways. But that it was like, why are you? This is called the Ogress and the Orphans, and all I'm getting is the Ogress with about 10 minutes of the Orphans.
Yeah,
I don't feel. I mean, she spent more time baking goods and putting them on people's doorsteps than I got with the Orphans.
I think it was fun, quote unquote fun, to try and figure out what news cycle thing she was trying to put into here.
Yeah.
I would guess the Ogress. I don't want to get into it, but you know.
Well, I was in a.
I listen.
What?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say I was in a state of denial for a long time because I was like, she can't be doing what I think she's doing. Nah, I'm reading this wrong. I need to read this when I'm more awake. And then I read the author's note and I was like, she's totally doing it.
Totally doing
it. And that's why I was, when I text you guys and said, oh my goodness, I'm going to be, I was on chapter 2. That's how early.
I know. That's when it hit for me too. I was like, something is wrong.
That's how early. Yeah, that's how early this book delves. And listen, like Amber says, like Dana says, we're not here to change your mind about anything. We're just talking about the book. But at some point, your hyperbole has to drop off, and you have to. Again, here's my problem, and I'm gonna harp on it a little bit. I know you said we wouldn't, but I am the burning of the. At no point was any library under the current president, when he was the previous president. No libraries, no buildings were ever burned down by him.
No, so I think it was more towards supporters and the book banning. I don't know.
But there was books have been banned under every. Books have. That's my point. If you're going to, here's my thing. If you're trying to portray a certain individual as a villain, you have to portray all other presidents as villains as well, because books have been banned since the dawn of time.
Right.
Books have been banned under every president. Probably. I'm not going to go back all the way to George Washington to see if he banned any books, but books have been banned and things of that nature. But the biggest thing, and this is my biggest pet peeve, books aren't banned.
Right.
You can go to Amazon and buy them. You can go to the library and check them out. They're not banned. They are just pulled from shelves. But if you're really insistent on reading these books, Amazon is a great place. Barnes and Noble, they're all there. They're not banned.
It's the pushback of certain. You know what it is. It's when everybody was like, well, we can't have this in our library for kids because it portrays certain activities as normal and whatever. It was very like 2020 was under a magnifying glass for some reason for people, and so now
we had nothing else to do. You know, I mean, seriously, like everybody was home and everything was shut down. And so, you know, the news cycle became the focus.
Do a puzzle.
Right?
Do a puzzle. No.
And
Go ahead.
Just the mayor making the signs that says "Make our town lovely again." I was livid.
Maybe we should build a wall.
And with people listening, oh yeah, we should build a wall to keep them out. And for people listening, you don't know anything about me and how I think politically or what I think of people. I am saying that Kelly Barnhill had no business putting this much hate, her own hate and frustration, in a novel for children.
Right.
That's my anger. That's my problem.
My anger as well.
Yes, that's what ticked me off so much. I was like, if you want to write this for adults, go ahead, but keep it out of the kids' aisle.
So keep it out of the kids' aisle. It should have been an adult book. That's and if this was an adult book, I probably wouldn't have been angry as much had this been an adult book.
And it's
but again,
sad.
those are my
I was just gonna say
those are my new criticisms.
Great author.
Sorry. Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what everybody said. The girl who drank the moon was critically acclaimed. I mean, it was it was a great book, and even people that did like this book even still said it was not as good as The Girl Who Drank the Moon. So yeah, I understand and I get it. I'm one of those people, and you can cancel me, you can knock me out, you can do whatever you want. I'm one of those people, when I read, I want to be away from the real world. I want to be lost in a world that has nothing to do with the real world. Sure, you can put politics in it. Star Wars has politics in it. You can do that, but don't make it about. And if you're angry, if you're that angry, that you're right, I think an essay would have been perfect. If you're that angry, go write an essay, put it out to adults. We don't even watch. I don't even let my kids watch the news anymore.
Thank you.
Because I don't want, and it's not because I want them to not think critically.
They're little girls.
They can learn. Yeah, they can learn the world around them from the friends that they have. That's where they're going.
It's an age appropriate thing. Like, maybe juniors and seniors in high school can read this in a civics class or something. I don't know, English, and hash it out then. But this is not a book for. There's no way 16, 17-year-olds going to pick this book up. Anyway, this is a book for 10, 12, 13-year-olds.
Well, and it's just, you can address these issues without putting so much of yourself into the book and without being so, like you said, so obvious about it. I mean, we've all read fantastic books that made us go, wow, that really made me stop and think about this thing that's happening right now in culture. It made no reference to, it could have been a book that was 200 years old, and yet, it made us stop and think about the way we live now because it was a well-written book. Not because it sort of took the headlines and went, let me fictionalize these and put them in a fantasy for children. So that's just not a good way to write a book, and it's not a good way to make people think about the world around them. So, in my humble opinion, I've never written a book, but I've read a lot of them, and I know the ones that made me think, and they're not the ones that are written like this.
So that's a good point, Dana. Is we've talked before about children. We raise our children and we teach them how to think, not what to think. And Kelly didn't do this. She's like, this is what you need to think.
Exactly.
About things that happened 5 years ago.
Right.
She didn't just talk about kindness and how to be a good neighbor and live in a community with people that are different than you, which are beautiful things to talk about. And, and then let a person on their own go, oh, that kind of reminds me of 2020. And I didn't really like that. But no, she's like, no, this is what happened. And this is why I hate it. And you should hate it too. Oh, and you're probably wrong. And you need to go check your verifiable facts.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And that makes for a bad book. I wouldn't want to read that book as an adult. She wants to write it for adults. Go ahead. I wouldn't want to read it. I would still be bored out of my mind. Because like Dash said, I don't want to reread the headlines in some sort of a fantasy world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know why I read historical fiction? Because I'd rather read about World War II than, the war my husband was in 10 years ago. You know what I mean? So,
and the thing is, in reading about World War II, it's totally still applicable to today. You'll be like, oh, that thing that was going on there, look, I see it here. And history repeats itself and we don't ever quite learn and all those things, but it's not done with a hammer. So.
Yeah, that yes, it's not done with a hammer. You have to. The problem is this book doesn't leave it open for discussion.
No.
We're discussing it, but but in the I think it just doesn't. It's her way or no way. The way I read it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we're discussing it, and we're discussing. If we were in a group, there would probably people that would think like that, and we would be shut down immediately.
Oh yeah.
If a opposite book was written about, if there was the ogre and how the ogre is making Ogre Town great again, that book would never even seen the light of day.
Yeah.
And that's my problem. There's no even keel. It has to be one way or the other.
Yeah,
And
it's
I'm so tired of the narrative of, well, if you think that way, you're not a good person. That is a way to get out of an argument. That is a way to take the superior moral high ground that you think you have, and shut down an argument. That's fine. I mean, I'd rather not argue anyways. I'd rather just, how you doing? Have a nice day and be on my way.
you said something that made me think. So Miss Barnhill was so obvious about who was on the right side and who was on the wrong side, that there is no room for argument. And she did that by making the opposite point of view so terrible. So terrible. Why would any child read that and go, well, I want to be like them? No. There isn't any wiggle room. She she drew the line in the sand. This is terrible. And every time I read a Stephen King novel, I'm like, well, there are the Republicans being the bad guy again, because he's so obvious about it. But he's not a jerk about it, though. I think
Right.
It's just like the good guy Democrat and the bad guy's a Republican, and we all know Stephen King thinks that way because he puts it on Twitter, right? This just kind of came out of left field because The Girl That Drank the Moon is beautiful, and please don't hold The Ogress and the Orphans against Kelly Barnhill. I think everybody should read The Girl That Drank the Moon.
Yes, I would recommend The Girl Who Drank the Moon to everybody.
Yeah, it's so good. So, but Stephen King doesn't shock us, and he's just like, this is what's happening. But Kelly's like, no, if you don't think the mayor is terrible, you're terrible, and so now we have to figure out how to change your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, with Stephen King, even the Republicans have redeeming qualities. Even in his stories, they still have redeeming qualities. There were no,
and he's writing for adults.
Qualities.
Yes. Yes.
There are no redeeming qualities for the opposite side of this. And again, like Amber says, no one knows my politics. No one knows what I do. I don't talk about it. I leave it. You will never see me on social media talking my politics, because it's nobody's business but Lorena and mine. We're the only two that discuss that. And if you would like to discuss it, you can contact me privately and we can have a discussion. But I'm never going to discuss politics with anybody that I don't feel like needs to touch. And I got that out of the way. But I will say there was some good things. Like I said, I did like her prose. She does write very well. She's to the point, but it's very obvious in The Girl Who Drank the Moon. Her prose is very good, and I think at times, like Dana said, at times it shines in this book, and then at times it's overshadowed so much. Mm-hmm. What would you say there is any good quality, Amber, about this book?
Oh, I think I've said it before. Just the part about the neighbor. I just really think she just nailed it on the head with that one. Other than that, I really don't think it's readable. I hesitate to take it to the thrift store because I don't want other people to pull it off the shelf. But I can't throw it away because I don't like that either. So it may just live on my shelf forever. Should have got this one from the library.
Yeah, I agree. Dana, was there any redeeming qualities about this book in your opinion?
I thought there were parts of it that had potential. I actually would love to read a good story about the Ogress. That would be fun to read. I liked the Ogress. I liked the, learning about what she was doing. It felt like playing house almost, watching her settle in and create her own little world out there, her life. And it was fun to see her, trying to get to know her neighbors. I loved that part. I really did. But it was just so little and so much other in between that you have to wade through. And I was just bored. I was bored out of my mind. When I wasn't angry, I was bored. So
yeah, there were times I was just like, I in all fairness to everybody that's ever watched this show, I will rarely DNF a book. I mean, I'm talking rarely will I DNF a book. If I'm going to give you a complete synopsis of what I think about a book, this is my opinion. I know there's a lot of people that will DNF a book and still give a very good breakdown. But for me, I feel like sometimes I feel like if I did that, I wouldn't give a good breakdown. But there were times where I was ready to DNF this book and not, I will just say it could have been so much better had her anger taken a backseat, still give a good moral lesson, but not with so much anger. I think it would have been a good book. Go ahead. I saw you biting your lips there.
We'll get to that later. I think with the Ogress, the interesting part too was the crows. So apparently the children learned how to speak crow, and the adults did not believe them, and that was kind of annoying too, because the adults were just, "You're just a kid. We're not even going to listen to you." And I'm like, ugh. Anyway, but the Ogress could not speak crow. So those parts were cute when she was trying to. They were trying to warn her, and she's like, "Oh, you guys are so fun," and she couldn't read it. So the Ogress herself was super fun. You're right, Dana. Those parts were really cute. Yeah. Dash, I was biting my lip because I'm a firm believer in DNFing because there's many other books to read. But I think unless you're getting paid to review, and I understand us reading both. But I just wanted to tell you that if you DNF, you can still review it because you can talk about why you felt like you couldn't continue anymore. So just whatever. I was just going to say that.
No, I totally get that. And I don't disagree with you on your DNFing. It's a me thing. I feel, because I've always, you never watched it. So how could you never watched it? So how can you make a critique about it? So to stop anybody from saying, well, you didn't read it all the way, you don't know if it's good or not. I read it all the way.
Well, I know up to 50 pages it sucked. So why would I read anymore? That's my extent.
I have walked out of a movie that I paid money for. So
I have too.
Natural Born Killers was a movie that I completely walked out of because it was not good to me. So I'm not saying that you can't make a good and I like I said, there's lots of people that make great arguments, even in the 50 pages that they read, why it wasn't good. For me, it's a thing where, well, you can't tell me that I didn't read it all because I did read it all, and I can make my argument. So, and I feel like there were good, like we said,
to win arguments.
Yeah, of course I like to win. Of course I do. I mean, I would be lying if I said I didn't like to win. But if I'm going to go into an argument, and this goes for any, and I say argument, but I'm talking a
discussion,
but a open-sided and not one-sided discussion. I like to go in with my ammo bag packed, if you know what I mean.
Well, no, and for this show, we should finish.
I want my ammo loaded. Yeah.
Yeah. And I agree. I think there's only been one time where I'm like, I'm not finishing this book, and I don't even remember which one it is.
It was one of mine. It was one of mine.
It was one of yours. But on Goodreads, you will never know because I just delete them off. I don't record DNFs. I don't make note of them. I just delete it, and it's like I never even tried.
Yeah. If you're going to have discourse, you've got to be open to discourse. And that is something that is seriously lacking on Goodreads, I think, at times. I think it definitely lacks on Amazon and a lot of review sites. Discourse is you have to have discourse. And what I mean by that, you have to be able to hear other opinions on that. And I think we do that well, even though Amber shuts me down 99% of the time. But,
oh my goodness.
I kid. It's only 98. It's only 8. It's only 98.
I went to mass today
98.
and I partaked in communion. And so I'm in a really good place right now, and I'm not going to bite.
You're feeling it today.
That's good to hear. Well, and to your point, Dash, this goes back to what Amber said a minute ago about, the book doesn't leave room for discourse. And books should. I used to tell my middle school kids that one reason we read is because we're having a conversation with the author, with the characters, with each other, through history, with everybody who's read the book. It's sort of like reading is a giant conversation. And we get to talk about the issues that come up in a book. And it would be really hard to talk about this one because it's so clear who's right and who's wrong, according to this book. Yeah. So that, but just to repeat what you said, Amber, there is no discourse with this book. And that's part of the problem.
Not.
And 10, 12-year-olds are quite capable of having big discussions.
Yes.
Don't underestimate them.
Yeah, they have huge opinions. You give them, give them a Huckleberry Finn and throw out a question like, what do you think of the way he talked to Jim right there? And they're going to have thoughts. They're going to have lots of opinions about this.
Yeah.
And you can have a fantastic discussion.
That is
this book, there's one answer.
That's a perfect book. Yeah, that's a perfect book to discuss the world we live in, even now. Huckleberry Finn is probably more viable now at times than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you don't allow, and I'm preaching now probably, when you don't allow for discourse, you don't allow for critical thinking.
Exactly.
Because you're in an echo chamber now. You're in an echo chamber, and that's all you want. You want. I asked a question a long time ago. Would you rather be respected or validated?
Mm-hmm.
So I asked this question. Ask it to you, Dana. Would you rather be respected or validated?
Respected all day long. You don't have to agree with me, but it'd be nice if we can have a discussion, and at the end of the discussion you go, I think you're wrong. I totally disagree with you, but boy, it was sure fun talking about this with you, and I'm glad we're friends. That's what I want. And unfortunately, our culture is getting away from that, which is a shame.
Yes, all day long. When you listen to somebody with opposing views, you are not stating that you now agree with them. There's no obligation to agree with them when you have a conversation.
Right.
And that's missing in our society today.
Right.
That's missing in this.
And you just might, if you talk to somebody who doesn't agree with you, you just might learn something that helps to inform your own thinking. It might strengthen your own view. You might come away from that conversation going, more than ever, I feel like I'm right about this. Or you might come away going, wow, they gave me something to think about, and I've got to now process this and think, how does that fit with what I thought I believed about this issue? So, and it's a shame that we're not having those conversations. We're all poorer for it. So
I agree.
That's what this entire book is a seeking validation of her feelings.
Oh yeah.
And not seeking respect.
And seeking to be paid. That's the annoying thing too, is there are lots of libraries and lots of people buying this for their kids, thinking that they're buying quality literature, and so she's making money off of like shoving this down the throats of kids, and that's the thing that made me angry when I wasn't bored.
Because I guarantee you, had I made my book a preachy, angry, nobody would buy it.
Right.
Nobody. And then I would be, because I I guess there's a difference between being a national published author and a indie self-publishing author, and the fact that they can say, well, you're stupid but you're not allowed to say that with a national published author.
I don't know if you guys read past her author notes. There is an interview with Miss Barnhill in this book for 10-year-olds. And it's really good. I love it when they ask authors their favorite books to read or whatever. That's so fun. But she was talking about books that she rereads. And she said, I started rereading Octavia Butler's duology of parables during the grim Trump years. Again, I'm not trying to say my point of view on those years. I'm saying that has no business being in a book.
It's no bearing on.
It is terrible.
And especially when we've come to trust this author. I mean, I'm not sure how I feel about this either, because I go back and forth, but part of me thinks that anybody who's providing a product for a child has a certain responsibility. And so you have this wonderful book, The Girl Who Drank the Moon, and we're all like, ooh, Kelly Barnhill, I loved that book, and it's for my kids. And so there's a certain level of trust of the author, and then you feel betrayed when this is what you get. And I feel like she had a responsibility to, I don't know what the word is, but to protect, to cater to kids better than that. Adults, you get what you get. You're an adult, you figure it out, right? But if you're going for kids, I feel like the responsibility level higher. So
this won the Newbery Medal, not the honor. She won that year. That's a big deal for children's literature. She's not some podunk author who's just written one book or whatever. She is a highly decorated author. Right. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's why this one didn't win. That's why this book in particular didn't win it.
No, she did
because there was and again, I recommend The Girl Who Drank the Moon to everybody.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So I don't dislike Miss Barnhill at all. I don't dislike her at all. I think she's a wonderful author, but you can still be a wonderful author and be open to other things, I think.
I think you have, like Dana said, you just have a responsibility. I remember when Barack Obama was president, and he was talking to a group of, it was like directors, actors. I don't know what the whole thing was, but he said, you're allowed to make rated R movies. You're allowed to make NC-17 movies. That's fine. But when I take my 13-year-old to the movies for a 13-year-old age-appropriate movie, the trailers need to be age appropriate, because I think that was back in the day. It was just whatever movie company, and these 13-year-olds or 10-year-olds or whatever are having like this rated R horror movie trailer, and he's like, you have a responsibility to keep it age appropriate. Miss Barnhill. Yes. I feel like that's the whole thing.
I agree. Yeah.
So.
Especially if you're a known author, and like we can trust you.
Yeah. And I don't trust her anymore. She's got to earn it back.
Right.
Yeah. You got to earn the respect. That's what I get. That's what I mean. You don't need to be. I'm not going to validate you. I will never validate anybody. I will respect you, but you don't need my validation. You're a human being. You don't need my validation. You're already valid.
Do you talk to Lorena like that? Because my husband has to validate
me
all the time. If he doesn't tell me he loves me once a day, I'm very concerned.
She don't need my validation.
No, I need Eric's.
She don't need my validation.
I'm totally kidding. Sorry.
No, I probably seek out her validation a lot more than she does mine. Well, all right, let's get to the final. So what is your overall rating, Miss Dana, of this book?
It's a 1-star. And honestly, if I hadn't been doing it for this, it would have been a DNF. And I'm like Amber, when I DNF, it just doesn't even go on. It's like it never happened.
Yeah.
It doesn't hit any list anywhere. Just sort of kind of scrub it out of my memory and hope I don't accidentally pick it up again. So, yeah, and I'm one of those who gives it to like page 50, 55. I feel like I give books a good honest try. But
Not
so
the
it's,
book for me.
yeah, it's definitely a 1 star. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm trying to figure out what I think you got googly eyes because of your validation comment.
Do you love me, husband?
You should have posted eyes with little hearts coming out of it.
He's probably like, "Are you talking to me?" What'd you give it, Dash?
So
I know what you gave it. You said it already.
a 1 star. Yeah, 1 star.
I gave it 2. I know. But again, I think because I have the movie in my head, Dana. No, I'm just kidding.
That's true. You can picture the ogress out there with the crows and her sheep.
Farming. It's great. I just think there was enough of what it meant to be a neighbor and the thing about how books were helping the community. I liked that part. I liked it enough to, and 2 is a dislike, my friends. There's no liking. Right. I just didn't, it's just not going in the trash pile, I guess, is what a 1 star would be for me. So I'm giving her, oh, I really love the girl who drank the moon star. Okay, not once has he said he loved me. Look at this. He just keeps commenting, doing more things.
He'll be forgotten about it. That's because we have to read the whole thing, Eric. If we had stopped at page 50, I'd have probably forgotten it by now.
And I read a book several years ago with Dana and the podcast called Tess of the D'Urbervilles. And Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy really angered me in a lot of ways. And not one of those was his writing. But I was very mad. And I finished the book, through it, and gave it a 2 star on Goodreads and went about my day. I thought about that book for a solid year. It was in my brain. I was reliving. Oh, thank you, babe. I was reliving scenes. So I went back to Goodreads. Thank you. I went back to Goodreads and I gave it a 4 stars because I felt like if I spent a whole year thinking about that novel and thinking about the scenes that made me angry and how it impacted me, I thought he deserves better than what I gave him. I will not be doing that with this book.
No, I don't see myself thinking about it beyond this conversation. And I think it's interesting that we were having trouble remembering the oldest orphan's name.
Right.
We're struggling.
Because they're not,
in my head, I can't
memorable.
separate.
They're not memorable characters.
No. So, yeah. I'll probably remember it enough to, if I see some unsuspecting mom about to hand this to her child, stop!
Don't do it! Hey, I do want to mention one more scene that, it angered me, but I thought she was kind of spot on, and we don't even have to get into it. I'm just going to say it. She pretty much recreated the January 6th speech of Donald Trump and made it in this mayor. And I was like, oh my, I can't believe she did it. I cannot believe she did it. But she gave it to this dragon mayor. Yes, the dragon was human in disguise. And I was like, oh, I knew exactly what it was.
Yes.
Oh, just the cojones this woman had to put stuff in this novel for children blows my mind. Shame on her editor for letting her get away with half that stuff too.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Let's talk about next month.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was our review, our discussion, however you want to call it. So I'm trying to get to that.
I know. You try so hard to have a fancy.
I'm trying to get to that. So next month, Dana, tell us. Next month will be our movie and book month. Right. So tell us, Miss Dana, what our movie and book month is.
Yeah, so we're reading Wonderstruck, and just the author's name just flew out of my head. So if one of you has it on the tip of your
Brian
tongue,
Selznick.
thank you, Selznick. Yes. And so the movie is by the same name, Wonderstruck. I've not seen the movie. I have read the book. And the book just fascinated me. So I'm anxious for you guys to read it, and I'm anxious to watch the movie. I think it'll be fun.
It looks really good.
Yeah.
I've read the mention of Hugo Cabret.
I have not read or I have not read and or seen the movie. I'm getting a lag again, so I don't know what's going on. It's my dog.
Yeah, I've not read The Invention of Hugo Cabret, so I want to pick that up at some point. But yeah. Yeah. But this is definitely when you have to have the print copy, because the illustrations are numerous and they're an integral part of the story. So
yeah, I think when you look it up, it says that you have to the pictures tell a story, so you have to look at that. So don't listen on audio. It's probably not even on audio. I don't even know why I recorded it. Yeah. Dash, I'm only going to speak when spoken to now.
Stop. Anyway, we'll be back next month with Wonderstruck. It was a great show. This is probably my favorite show that we've done because of the actual discourse that because usually we're all kind of about 99 times out of 100, we're all pretty much on the same page, but there was a lot of good discussion in this one. So I appreciate ladies talking over this one. We'll be back next month, like I said, movie and book. Other than that, if there's anything that you guys want to request for us, throw it in the comments. We'd love to read whatever book that you want us to read, and we'll try to fit it into the schedule as well. And we'll be back. We are going to be live streaming the draft this year. Eric and Puffy and I will be live streaming draft night, day 1. So we're talking about all the NFL drafts that night, as well as go check out Ed and I's review of our music on his channel. It's fun to do. And go ahead, Amber. Go ahead.
Can I sit in on the draft show? Because I'm going to have my notebook and making my own notes on at least the first round. Can I be on that show too? Yes, you can. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna anyway. So
I said, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. It's gonna do it anyways. I will validate that for you, so you feel better.
Jesus has so much work to do in me when it comes to that. I know. So. Anyway.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's been our show. Thank you for coming out, and you ladies have a wonderful, wonderful week, rest of the weekend and a week, and we'll be back next month.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.